Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Tammy from Acclaimed.
I'm Kevin from Acclaimed. We're from Acclaimed Heating, Cooling, and Furnace Cleaning.
Yeah, we meet weekly and we do a weekly Facebook Live, and we usually tackle a conundrum that a homeowner is experiencing for their home. And this week, it is signed by Afraid of Getting Stuck in the Cold, and it's a Dear Keven letter.
Okay.
You ready for it?
I'm ready.
Okay. Dear Keven, last winter we were one of the unlucky households that got caught with a broken furnace on what seemed like the coldest day of the year. A few hours and a hefty after service call bill later, our furnace was fixed and it ran well for the rest of the season. With the recent snow in Edmonton, which is first of all very unfortunate, they want to make sure that they are not left in the cold again this year. What are some of the things we should be doing to make sure our furnace does not break again? Signed, Afraid of Getting Stuck in the Cold.
Now, it's a great question, and the Dear Keven letters are always interesting because people send us these questions. A lot of time we pick them from the same week because it's about things that are happening. That's a good example where it's too cold. So there's something called preventative maintenance, and there's preventative maintenance on many things that typical people would be doing. So whether that's their car or any of their household mechanical items, it's the same with your furnace. So preventative maintenance and service, a company like ours would come in and we would check all of the different components on the furnace, not just visually, but we would be putting our instrumentation on it to actually check how things are doing, gas pressures, and there's so many electrical components now. We check a lot of electrical components and see what they're telling us.
Right.
And so there are many things that we can do proactively that we spot and we find doing that service that would have otherwise likely gone in that heating season or perhaps a year and a half or whatnot. So there's a lot of things that can be prevented from breakage. Okay. Not everything. I'd say it's like your car. You know, you bring your car into the mechanic and they won't be able to get everything that might go wrong with your furnace. But there is a lot that we find and fix.
Now, are there any things that you would experience when you do furnace, when you kind of like symptoms or sounds or smells or things that you can watch for to make sure everything is working well?
Yeah, you know, the most common thing that people might be able to smell is like a burning or electrical smell. Okay. So there's a couple different motors in your furnace and whatnot, and so when those are going, they're overheating and stuff like that, you will get some smells on there. Okay. And so that's an indication. And you know, some of the time it's just like a really, really strong burning smell. It's not necessarily electrical, so that's a really good indication. But probably even more common than that is what it sounds. Okay. So, you know, if your furnace sounds different than it usually does, maybe it's not horrible, but it's not as quiet and just doesn't seem like it's working the same way as it used to.
So it sounds a little more laborious?
Yeah, laborious. There you go. It sounds more laborious. And you know, furnaces are funny because there's safety mechanisms in there, and one of the safety mechanisms is a high heat limit switch. So what happens is that when your furnace is on, if it's getting all this heat in the heat exchanger area that heats your house, but it doesn't have air blowing past it, no air blowing past it is going to result in an overheated furnace. So that thing shuts off.
To protect itself.
Yeah, to protect itself from basically starting on fire.
Which we appreciate.
Yeah, everybody appreciates that. But what happens is that sometimes a furnace will be like that for a year. Okay. Because the furnace heat will still be on, because as soon as the temperature drops, naturally, maybe it'll take half an hour, but it will drop and your furnace will come on again. Okay. So the furnace might still heat your house and you don't even know that that's happening. Right. That's the sort of thing that we would absolutely pick up on and get repaired during preventative maintenance.
And I guess that has a little bit to do with the restricted heat flow with the air duct, with the filter that would be plugged, that you have to watch out for. Yeah,
totally. That's one of the things that would cause that furnace to overheat, is not enough air getting through, or a blower motor that doesn't work. But your filter situation, we say it almost every time we're on, is keep that filter clean. And again, that filter will restrict the airflow. It'll shut that limit switch off. But after it switches off to prevent a fire like 50 or 100 times, it breaks and it won't come back on.
Okay. So preventative maintenance is the key, and then listen and watch for and smell signs of failure. Yeah. And if you feel like in your gut, I would say this, Kevin, if you feel in your gut there's probably something wrong with your furnace, you should just make a phone call to try and get that done sooner than later, because inevitably that's what happens. It does seem to go out in the coldest day of the winter. It does seem to go out in the days that are the most inopportune time, like Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. But a lot of times there's a cause and effect between the coldest day of the winter and a furnace dying.
Right, and that's because your furnace is working harder and longer. So, I always compare it to like you're driving a car in the city to work and back, and it's flat here, you're not putting a whole lot of pressure on your car, and your car has been really reliable, works great. Now all of a sudden you're going to Vancouver, and you're having to go up and down a couple of mountain passes.
Yes.
Well, your motor and your transmission hasn't worked that hard trying to pull you up a hill for maybe 10 years.
Right.
And all of a sudden this car that was really reliable, something major like the motor transmission goes, same with your furnace. The harder your furnace works, the more apt it is to have those things show up because they're under more stress than usual.
Okay, well that's a good answer to the, I really hope that getting afraid of being stuck will take some of those tips to heart.
Yeah.